on this computer. Okay, so here is one topic that I do want to talk about from what I saw. Me and my assistant Chris Silvano, we were working on auditing our all the matches last league meet, and one major thing that we did see was ring introduction into the field. Um, if you look at GS4, that talks about everything that the human player does. Now, um, the human player, your basic thing is putting rings into the field as quickly as practical and also resetting the power shot. Um, it's a really simple job, but if you don't do it correctly, it can actually do a lot of harm to your team. So I made a video for us to watch, and this video is also going to be posted later on our First in Oklahoma YouTube channel, just to talk about how important this is, that you make sure that you get those rings out properly, as well as get the power shots reset properly in the correct times. It is required to have a human player, but First has made some concessions for COVID stuff. So if you literally only have two drivers for your team and you don't have any other students to do the human player, you can use an adult for the human player, but they do still have to follow through with the same rules. So I will share my screen to show this video. Enjoy.
Hey there, human player. Did you know you are vital to the team alliance at the field? That's right. You hold the power of potential in your hands. Let's walk through your duties to help you know exactly how important you are. There are two main tasks that the human player is in charge of: rings recycle and power shot reset. Let's take a close look at the more likely performed task of ring recycle. Rings can be introduced into the field during driver control period. Any ring introduced earlier than the start of driver control period will receive a penalty. The first ring will get a warning. Subsequent rings will receive one minor penalty per Rule GS4-A. Rings need to be introduced and recycled to the field as quickly as practical. This is a good example of rings being introduced as quickly as practical. Also, as soon as a ring has left the field in a scored attempt for the tower or the power shots, that ring must also be recycled down the ring chute as quickly as practical. Holding on to rings or stowing.
Ingrid, we're not seeing video.
Oh,
We're
okay.
just hearing the
Oh, I'm
audio.
sorry.
Or
Yes,
-C.
okay.
The only exception is the human player can wait to introduce or recycle.
I try to be a little subtle on that, but
I don't know why it did that. Okay, so we're gonna move this over here and we will try this again. I apologize, folks.
Hey there, human player.
Yeah,
Did
can you
you
see
know
it?
you are vital to the team alliance at the field? That's right. You hold the power of potential in your hands. Let's walk through your duties to help you know exactly how important you are.
Later, I guess.
Main tasks that the human player is in charge of: rings recycle and power shot reset. Let's take a close look at the more likely performed task of ring recycle. Rings can be introduced into the field during driver control period. Any ring introduced earlier than the start of driver control period will receive a penalty. The first ring will get a warning. Subsequent rings will receive one minor penalty per Rule GS4-A. Rings need to be introduced and recycled to the field as quickly as practical. This is a good example of rings being introduced as quickly as practical. Also, as soon as a ring has left the field in a scored attempt for the tower or the power shots, that ring must also be recycled down the ring chute as quickly as practical. Holding on to rings or stowing during driver control period violates GS4-C. The only exception is the human player can wait to introduce or recycle rings if there is a robot in front of the ring chute. Please kindly wait until the robot has moved out of the way before putting a ring down the ring chute. If a ring touches a robot before touching the playing field floor, then the robot will incur a minor penalty per ring and can escalate to a major penalty per occurrence per GS6-B. If in the case of a live event where it is an opposing alliance robot that touches a ring before it touches the playing field floor via your ring chute, then no penalty will be assigned via G3. Let's take a look at the math on ring stowing for GS4-C. Take, for instance, the human player has 3 rings in their hand and obviously looks like they are not going to introduce those rings into the field for whatever reason, and the chute is clear of any robots being near it. The human player obviously waits for 12 seconds before beginning to introduce those 3 rings. The initial call by field personnel will give a miner per ring. Then, after 5 seconds and no rings introduced, another miner per ring will occur. Then, after another 5 seconds and no rings introduced, another miner per ring will occur. The human player begins introducing rings at 12 seconds after beginning the field personnel count. The count stops and the human player has incurred a total of 9 minor penalties, which equals negative 90 points. What if the same scenario had 6 rings? Then negative 180 points. This racks up. Be very mindful and get those rings out as quickly as practical. Reintroducing rings into the field as quickly as practical gives your alliance more chances to score with more rings that have randomly rolled around the field. Oh yeah, and if there is a ring stuck inside the tower goal, fish it out from the back side of the tower when robots are at least 1 tile away from the tower goal, GS4-E. Basically, when you see a ring outside the playing field around your human player box, quickly put it back into the field via the ring chute. It really is that simple. Now let's talk about Power Shot Reset. Power Shot Reset is only performed during driver control period and only once. Let me repeat that. Power Shot Reset is only performed during driver control period and only once. Try to reset before endgame, but if Ring Recycle is taking all of your focus, you are allowed to reset the power shots within the first 10 seconds of endgame. Resetting the power shots early or multiple times will result in penalties via GS4-D because they were unnecessary intrusions into the playing field perimeter by not performing the human player tasks properly. The human player may not extend inside the playing field perimeter. Violations begin with a warning and then a minor penalty per violation per GS4-D. If a ring gets stuck on a power shot, then only during driver control period may the human player remove the ring from the back of the power shot assembly without changing the direction of the power shot, then put the ring down the ring chute as quickly as practical.
Let's review.
Stand in the human player box during autonomous. You can pick up rings and hold them as well as fish out stuck rings from the back of the tower goal, but nothing else. Still chill out during the 8-second space between autonomous and driver control period. As soon as driver control period starts, release the rings down the chute as quickly as practical. Recycle, recycle, recycle! Reset the power shots before endgame or within the first 10 seconds of endgame. Only reset once. Recycle, recycle, recycle! When the end of the buzzer goes off, stop. Wait patiently in the human player box until the field personnel dismiss the players.
Alrighty, I hope this helps you understand the role of the human player. Have fun out there.
Okay, I hope that video helps in getting people to understand that you got to get those rings out. And basically the job is really simple. You put rings down the chute during driver control period and you reset that power shot 1 time. So if you need to show your human player that video, it will be up on YouTube either later tonight or tomorrow, or you can just watch this video whenever it gets put on YouTube as well. Let's see, a couple other things. Make sure you start on time. So whenever autonomous starts, you go 3, 2, 1, start. You can be initialized or you can not be initialized. Either way, make sure that you are starting on go. So if you are not initialized, which is perfectly fine, 3, 2, 1, double tap. So that way you can get the initialize going through really quickly and then you can hit go. So it's really to do, and then you're done. Make sure you stop at the end of the period. So autonomous, you stop after 30 seconds, or driver control, you make sure you stop at the end of at the buzzer. You can have a flywheel that is still powered, is not powered. It can still be rotating due to momentum, but it has to not be powered anymore to be properly stopped. So keep that in mind. Also keep in mind you're controlling. You're only allowed 3 rings, only 3 rings. That means 3 rings you're pushing, 3 rings that are on top of you in a intake or anything like that, 3 rings that are stuck underneath your chassis or underneath a wheel. So be mindful of it. Controlling is following the movement of the robot. So if it deflects off of it, that's more like plowing, and that is a-okay. It's not following the movement of the robot, it's going in a different direction. So be very mindful when you drive around that those rings, you got to make sure that you're not controlling more than what you need to. And so when you do control extra rings, let's say you get 1 ring, it's stuck underneath you, sorry, so you're at 4 rings controlling, you're over by 1. You have an initial control penalty, which is a minor. If you can't seem to drop an extra ring, it doesn't matter if it's the one that's underneath you or whatever, just as long as you're no longer controlling an extra. If you don't seem to drop that after 5 seconds, then you get another minor per extra ring after 5 seconds. And it continues doing that until you finally get to the proper amount of controlling. So be very mindful of that. I have a question from, it looks like Jeremiah from Atomic Gears. So for GS6-B, is it just touching the robot before it touches the ground that causes a penalty, or does it include possessing controlling? Let me take a look at GS6-B. Playing field floor. It has to touch the floor first. It says it has to be supported by the playing field floor. So if you have a robot that goes underneath it, underneath your chute, your ring chute, and it just so happens that it's an absolute fluke this happens, but the ring doesn't quite make it to the floor. Instead, it gets on your robot first. Sorry about you, but that's a minor penalty on the robot. Regardless if it's an accident or not, it is a minor penalty. I think that's most of my notes that I have. So let's continue with questions. You can type your questions in the chat, or you can unmute yourself and ask the question verbally.
Miss Ingrid, I'd like to have a comment or two,
Okay.
if I don't mind. I was one of the people reviewing the videos with Ingrid, and we were having some good talks. I think to expand upon the reins 2, GS2 comes into mind. About the last sentence says it's reasonable for the human player to leave the human player station to retrieve reins. That was something that came up too, is that reins bounce off or reins roll, and reins are sitting off the side of the playing area. And that's something where you have to kind of reintroduce them back to the field. And it's that mentality, honestly, of obviously we're playing in a remote event setting, and I understand that, but fingers crossed we can ultimately play at least something in person at some point. And you got to think about it. If you had an alliance partner, that you want them to have the highest amount of scoring opportunities. And then also likely you would have other people like Miss Ingrid and staff that probably reintroduce it, but all of you are kind of adding responsibilities to yourselves. So just don't forget about that.
Right.
But I think Ingrid's video covers it pretty well. And just remember when you can introduce things, like what's the criteria for getting end game points too. There were times where people didn't know when a wobble goal had to be in a certain area of the field in order to then be put into play to be eligible for end game scoring. That was the biggest thing that I saw too.
Right. Just to reiterate on that, make sure your wobble goal is on the tower side of the launch line prior to end game, as well as it can be in, doesn't have to be completely in, but it can be in target zone A. And that qualifies it in end game to be able to be put on the start line or in the drop zone. If you want to put rings on the wobble goal, that wobble goal can be anywhere prior to at the start of end game. You can just only put those rings on the wobble goal during end game. But comboing all that up, you put rings on the wobble goal during end game, but you want to also put that in the drop zone. First, you put your rings on the wobble goal, but the wobble goal has to be on the correct side of the field in order to be used for the drop zone. So really first is it has to be on the tower side of the launch line at the start of end game or in target zone A. Then you can put your rings on the wobble goal, and then you can put that wobble goal into the drop zone. It's not allowed to put the wobble goal in the drop zone, then put rings on it, because then you get penalties for that because you're unnecessarily extruding outside the field. And so you have to make sure if you're going to do a combo move like that, that you get all your ducks in a row of order of sequence. Other questions? So you have to get the wobble goal into the right square in order to get the points from Riley. Yes, so for autonomous, if you want points during autonomous for getting the wobble goal in the correct target zone, that's judged based off of how many rings are in your starter stack. So if there are 0 rings in your starter stack, that means target zone A. 1 ring, that would be target zone B. 4 rings, target zone C. So that's randomized, and how that works is you get your robot set on the field, you get everything but you get everything set and ready on your robot. That means your wobble goals, rings if you want them. You have everything set on the field. Everybody gets outside the field. You select your autonomous mode, then hands off. Then field personnel will randomize, which means it's a computer generated randomization. And so it'll say, it's in target zone C. So we need 4 rings on the field. So your field personnel put 4 rings on the field on that starter stack square. And then your field personnel check to make sure everybody's ready to go. And then you have 3, 2, 1, go. And then it's when you press go for your autonomous mode. I think, does he mean the square the wobble goal is in affects the points you can score in end game? No, not necessarily. So when we say target zone A, that's just it's also an allowance of where your wobble goal is at. It does have to be on a certain side of the field, which that is on the side of the field that the tower side of the launch line on the field. So you cannot be over that launch line at all unless it's in target zone A. That's where that in versus completely in is. To get a verification, let's see, Riley, to get a verification on that, why don't you take a look at our drivers meeting 1 and drivers meeting 2. That's going to have a section in there that talks more specifically about it and gives a demonstration on that, gives examples. All right, thanks, Riley. Other questions?
I can post links to both drivers meetings from 1 and 2, by the way.
Thank you, Chris.
There's some on the website. Yep.
Also, we've had a few teams that I've noticed that there's a little bit of a wobble in their assemblies, their target shot assemblies, power shot assemblies. A way to fix that is to anchor that open leg away from the tower, anchor that to a chair. And so what I did is I put some zip ties and zip tied it around a chair, and that'll help anchor it. And so that is going to give you, it's going to take away a lot of that wiggle or that wobble that happens whenever you hit the power shot. And sometimes it's just going to sling that power shot back because there's so much force going on in there. And where's that energy going to go? Well, if you can tie it down to a leg, then that's going to help keep that energy from turning your power shot to the forward position again, so you don't get sad over it. So try to, if you're having that issue, or even if you're not having that issue, just go ahead and do it. So that way you don't have that random fluke shot that ruins your game. So make sure you anchor that power shot assembly. That should fix an awful lot of your issues. Thank you, Chris. Drivers meeting 1 recording and drivers meeting 2 recording are in the chat. They're also available on our First in Oklahoma channel, which we have different playlists. So we have a playlist for meet 1 and a playlist for meet 2. We will have a playlist for meet 3 as well. I do want to encourage everyone to post to voluntarily give us your videos. It's not a requirement. And if you don't want them posted anywhere or used on the reveal show, then that's a-okay. Just let me know on your submission form, which Travis put that in your last email, I do believe. So try to submit some videos, even if you're only able to just move a wobble goal into a target zone. I like to see how your team is progressing, and also give some feedback on, hey, you know, this could be helpful for refereeing or for scoring or something like that. So I do go through all of these. I have a team of people now that is going through all these and helping me out, because good gosh, this is great, but that's a lot. There's 44 teams participating this next week. That's amazing. We started with like 15 and then we went to 22, and then all of a sudden, bam, we have 44. So just keep it going. Have faith in yourself. I promise if you don't feel like you are 100% up to snuff and ready, just get those wheels on the field. They're going to, just experiencing this and going through the works, the motions of this is going to help your team out so much. You will learn something from this. If anything, it'll inspire you to do better for next time. And keep in mind, we only take your top 10 scores. We still have next week and at least 2 other meets. So you have quite a few chances still to only use your top 10 scores if you haven't even competed yet. So wheels on the field. And if you are not even signed up for next week, I believe Travis, if you just message him, you might be able to get in next week. So just send him an email. Travis. Yep. Travis says, just give him an email and say, hey, I'm interested in playing next week. Or you have a team that you're affiliated with or you know of and you've talked, just tell him, hey, talk to Travis. He'll get you hooked up. And his email is tsmith@firstpartners.org. Any other questions?
Where did you say that the video, Miss Ingrid, would be posted for the human player portion you did?
I will have that posted on our First in Oklahoma YouTube channel, but I will also put a link in our Discord. Probably, I'll put that in like the game rule strategy channel on our Discord. And if you're not signed on to the Discord, please get on our Discord so you can talk to other teams and get help immediately. Could somebody post the Discord link in the chat, please? Yes, you can also check the link. Thank you, Chris. You can also check the link I posted after we get the link. Yep. Other questions? We have an incredibly chatty bunch this evening. Okay, it looks like we don't have any. So thank you very much for your time. Where's the Discord link? I do believe, John, that it is posted just a little bit further up in chat. It was posted by Chris Lovano. So check that out.
No, that was made. That was the
Oh,
Oklahoma I can do an invite people link, and this
Okay.
should do it. Hang on. I want to make sure I copy the right Discord channel because I'm in a lot of those. So
After a while, you get so used to being on Discord, you have way too many channels. I understand that.
yeah, so that should be the one to Oklahoma FTC.
Okay, there it is. Yep, it's in our chat.
And I would just say for courtesy, because I know a lot of people here, when you get in there, change your name to probably change your nickname to your real life name followed by your number, and let one of the admins know, and they can give you a nice color code and your own team tag name and stuff like that.
Yes, and it even talks about it in the welcome channel of what you need to do and the kind of rules you need to look at and abide by. And for parents out there that are wondering, this channel, this Discord channel is monitored by a lot of coaches and myself and Travis. It is, we make sure that everything's PG and everything is in accordance to first standards. So. Alrighty, well, it doesn't seem like we have any other questions. I want to thank everyone for their time this evening, and it was good to see you all here. So this will be posted either later tonight or sometime tomorrow, and good luck next week. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Good luck, everybody.